We will now go over part B of the Groovy Google Sheets one variable statistics. And in this section, we're going to be looking at statistics and box and whisker plots for variables that have different strata, such as we're going to be looking at the marks for a unit test, and we're going to be looking at two different teachers, Mr. Math and Mrs. Math. So it's the same variable, which is marks, but there's two different strata because there's two different groups. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to calculate the mean and the sample standard deviation and the median for Mrs. Math marks only, starting in cell D2. So if you want to remember the formulas, so the mean for Mrs. Math is you're going to type equals average, bracket, and then you can highlight the data, or you can click on the first cell and press Control or Command on a Mac, Shift and down, and it will highlight all the marks. You can close the bracket, you don't need to, but if you press equal, there's the mean. Sample standard deviation is equals STDEV, open bracket, highlight the data, enter. And median is equals median, open the bracket, highlight the data, and equals. Now you're going to highlight all of those three statistics from cells D2 to D4, and then if you fill it to the right, so in that blue square, get the crosshairs and fill it to the right, and it will fill in all of those statistics for Mr. Math. So if you click on here, you can see because we did not use absolute cell referencing, so we did not use the dollar signs, that means everything that was calculated over in Mrs. Math to be in column A now moves over to Mr. Math, which is in column B. Now, when we're comparing data, you may want to make multiple box and whisker plots, and you can do them on the same grid. And to do this, we're going to have to go back to the Plotly site. Now, sometimes it's just easier to open up a new Plotly, but if you're continuing on from section A, what you could do is go back up to Traces, and you can close off that trace, and over here you can close off that grid and remove it, and then you'll be ready to start all over again. So what we're going to do is copy and paste the data from columns 1 and 2 from the Math Marks tab in Google Sheets into Grid 1, cell A1. So in here, we're going to highlight cells A and B, copy it, then in Plotly, go to cell A1, paste it, and then your data is ready to go. Click on the Trace button, just like before. Change to the scatter plot to a box plot. And decide if you want them to be horizontal or vertical. We'll do a horizontal. But now we're going to make two different box plots. So here's what you want to do. If we're going to make a horizontal box plot, beside the X, we're going to select column A, which is Mrs. Math. So beside X, choose A. Now, for the second box plot, you don't put it into Y. What you have to do is click on the plus trace button again, and you will get this. It's going to automatically know that you want another box, and we're going to change it to box if needed, but it should know that you want a box. You should make it the same direction that you wanted before, so because it was horizontal before, it's going to be horizontal again, so you want to make it match. So beside the X, we're going to type in the data from column B. So now you can see you start to have one box plot here for Mrs. Math, you can see the 5-number summary, and one box plot here for Mr. Math, and you can see the 5-number summary. And you can also see that neither one of them refer to an upper fence or a lower fence, so it is unlikely that you have any outliers. Now you're going to click on where it says click to enter plot title up here and press the space bar to get rid of the title. You're going to click on click to enter y-axis. This time we do need to label this because we have two different box plots, so we need to label what each one is going to be. So in this case, the title is going to be teacher. On the x-axis title, we're going to change it to math mark, and you need the units, which is percents. Then under style, on the left side, under traces, in the trace 0 box, trace 0 here was Mrs. Math, so we're going to change trace 0 to say Mrs. Math. Always remember which one is which, so the bottom one was column A, if that's what you made. So trace 0 will change to Mrs. Math. And then under points, we can see there's no fences, but we can still put on suspected outliers, just in case you decide later you want to add data and it might be an outlier. Then scroll down to the trace 1 box, and where it says trace 1, you're going to change that to Mr. Math. So now both of your teachers have been labeled, and under points, you're going to put on suspected outliers. So there's no dots, so there's no suspected outliers. Now, because we have labeled each teacher, we don't need this legend. If you wanted to keep this legend, then you would not need to label these teachers. So what you can do is click on legend over here, and you can click hide. So you don't need the legend anymore. So you either need to label these or the legend, you don't need both. Then you can do a screen capture using whatever tool you want. And then you're going to copy this and then go back to your Google Sheet and paste it in there. You can resize it if you want. And reposition it, do whatever you want with this, but you can paste it right in there. And that concludes section B.